Welcome back. My name is Jeff, and this is Word for Yours. Quick channel update. I recently had to put my co-star Peanut to sleep. She had been the best part of the show as far as I'm concerned. So I've had to take a break. This video will be a few weeks since my last one. Had to be done. So at the end of the video, I have a quick homage to her, showcasing. A while back, we made these. We made videos together. At the end of the video, stick around to watch. It's hard to explain, but it's my way of remembering her. Just is. Anyway, so to continue with the video, we were tagged by a fellow booktuber, Brian Mr. I love his videos. He always starts out every one of them with the very relaxing video of the countryside surroundings, him and his dog running around, just looking at how beautiful the country is. I love his videos. Go check them out. Show him some love. He tagged us with the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. Cool, right? It's supposed to be at the middle of the year, sort of, where are you now? Mid-year, halfway point, sort of a thing. So, best book you've read so far is the first question. That will have to be Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I did it. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Lemur's got the lawnmower going. I hope you can't hear that. But Andy Weir, Project Hail Mary is, it's about a guy wakes up in a spaceship in the middle of space, has no idea who he is, where he is, why he's there. And he has to figure that out. That lawnmower. I hope you can't hear it. Anyway, there's this bacteria that's growing all over the sun and covering it up and diminishing the light, and the Earth is feeling the effects of it. They send him across space to find out the answer to why the sun is dying, how to fix it. So good, right? If you ever read The Martian by Andy Weir, it has a lot of that feel to it, but it does it more and better. I really like it. So far this year, that's the best book I've read. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. If I were to recommend any book I've read, it's that one. Go read it. The best sequel you've read so far. That will have to be, there is The Last Policeman trilogy by Ben H. Winters. The second one of the book is World of Trouble. It's about end of the world detective mystery. Asteroid is coming for Earth. They can see it months away. The main character is the last policeman. He got his job because everybody's been quitting their jobs, and the space just opened up, so he took it. So he's a detective now at the end of the world. I'm not going to tell you anything more about it because you really have to read it. I am partial to detective mysteries if you've watched any of the videos. But this is one of the better ones that I've read, and the best sequel that I've read this year is World of Trouble by Ben H. Winters, second book in the Last Policeman trilogy. Really like it. New release, I haven't read yet, but I want to. The Kaiju Preservation Society. I love John Scalzi. He's a really good writer. He has a way of bringing characters. He has a way of writing characters so that they jump out of the page right at you and just sit in your lap. He wrote. I just did an ARC review of his for something that's coming out called Starter Villain, which was really good. So I'm very much looking forward to the Kaiju Preservation Society. The very name of it just drips with something I would love to read. So that's the new release I haven't read yet. and I'm most anticipated. The most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I gotta say, I don't have one. I'm very bad at keeping up with what's coming out this year. Because I'm usually the last to hear about things. I've recently tried to get into doing ARC reviews, which, if you're uninitiated to BookTube, it's advanced reader copies. They release books before they're actually published to reviewers like myself and people doing other things, just so they can read them, make videos like this one, make a buzz for them. But other than that, I'm really bad at keeping up with stuff that's coming out this year and the very new stuff. Usually by the time you hear about stuff, it's already been out for a few years. So I gotta say, I'm not looking forward to anything that's coming out this year because I don't know what it is. Number 5, my biggest disappointment was Authority by Jeff Vandermeer. It was the second book in the Southern Reach trilogy. They did, the first book is called Annihilation. They made a movie about it with Natalie Portman. The first book, Annihilation, was so good. So good. I did a review on that as well. I'll try to put a link to it somewhere. I absolutely loved the book, and I fell in love with Jeff Vandermeer. Not in a creepy way. So when I finished reading the first one, I put the second two on my TBR list as soon as I got done reading it because I loved it so much. So when I finally got to the second book, it was bad. It was nothing like the first one. It was so unlike the first one that it felt like someone else wrote it. And the first one, it was very, there's this Area X in the movie, they call it the Shimmer. They spend most of their time in there and exploring, and it's very surreal, and it's very atmospheric, and it's very provoking, and it's very page-turning, and one thing after another, after another, after another. But the second book, Authority, it's very standstill. It's very slow. It's very reminiscent. It's almost nothing like the first one. I mean, I've talked to people who loved it. I've talked to people who got into the trilogy because they started with the second book first. But it just wasn't for me. So I loved the first book so much. The second book was such a disappointment because it was just absolutely not meant for me. My biggest surprise was On a Pale Horse by Pierce Anthony. On a Pale Horse came to me suggested by, I'm still friends with my best friend from high school. He always loved to read, and he just suggested a book that he loved reading a few years back called On a Pale Horse. It turns out, it is about Death himself. It turns out Death is a job role that can be filled by multiple people. But once you take the job, you're it until you, Death, are in fact dead. Once that happens, someone else takes your place, whoever killed you. So it's fantasy, I guess you can call it that. So Death is an actual character. Time is an actual character. All these Greek gods are actual characters, but they're roles that are filled by people. Once that person dies, someone else fills the role. Like someone else fills the role of love, the role of time, the role of death. It starts off with this feel of young adult kind of a book, and it ends up being something that's very adult and very deep. Such as most of it, there's this sort of Catholic version of the afterlife, heaven, hell, purgatory. And at one point, he comes up he has to see an atheist who doesn't believe in anything. And when he finally dies, he just sort of disappears, which is kind of cool. It's very thought-provoking. I really liked reading it. That was my biggest surprise of this year. It's On a Pale Horse by Pierce Anthony. It's actually got to be on one of my top 100 books you absolutely must read. I really like that one. So, biggest surprise. Number 7, favorite new author, either debut or new to me. And I got to say that is Cassandra Crowe. Cassandra Caw. Got to say her name right. I recently read Hammers on Bone. It's this. It's cosmic horror detective noir. To summarize of it without giving too much away, it involves a private detective. A girl comes to see the private detective and asks him to kill her father. And I'm not going to tell you anything else because you've got to. But part of the mystery is figuring out why she's asking to kill her father and who her father is. And it's really good. Cassandra Caw writes in this. It's very detective noir, and it turns out that is actually very divisive because some people, like myself, love that style of writing, but some people just can't handle it. They just can't. So I recommend it if you were into that kind of thing. If you're into that kind of thing, you will absolutely love Cassandra Caw. But if you're not, she's got other stuff that's out, such as Nothing But Blackened Teeth, I think is the name of it, that I've been looking forward to a while. But other booktubers have read it, and they said that they didn't like it. But I'm going to read it anyway, just because I'm a curious guy. I'm a curious guy. I'm going to check it out. So that's my favorite new author, either new or new to me, is Cassandra Caw. Number 8, newest fictional crush. I gotta say, I don't have one. It's really hard to gain a crush on somebody through literature. I gotta say, it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I got fictional crushes from TV, such as Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series, Velma from Scooby-Doo, Uhura from Star Trek. But nobody, I don't think I've ever, a crush has ever occurred to me from somebody from literature, like solely from literature. So I gotta say, I gotta pass on that one. Number 9, newest favorite character. That has to be Murderbot from the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Well, I read one, and it was actually The Space Detective. I think it's All Systems Red, or I forget which one it was. But it was such humor, such sarcasm, such an attitude. I mean, you really identify with Martha Wells' Murderbot. Well, they call it Murderbot because it was actually meant as a security robot, but somewhere along the line, it had hacked its safety protocols, so it's fully autonomous now, and it doesn't have to take the orders from humans, but sometimes it just kind of falls in line because it serves its purposes. I love the humor in it. It is so funny. It's her books are kind of novellas, so they're really short, quick reads. Most of the ones I read are either at the library or on Kindle Unlimited, so they're easy to get your hands on. You're going to love it. Everybody I know, like everybody, right? Everybody I know loves murder. Just go read it. Just go read it. The book that made me cry has to be the third book in the Last Policeman trilogy, going back to that World of Trouble by Ben H. Winters. Again, that's the detective mystery at the end of the world where the asteroid is coming. Without giving too much away, he builds these characters so much that, well, to start with, the main characters are the male detective and his sister. And they have this relationship between each other that doesn't, they don't fully understand each other, but that's okay because they're family, and you feel that. And by the third book, you love these characters. They're part of your life. And at the end of it, I cried. I seriously cried when I read the end of that third book. And I went on Twitter, I talked about it. Both the author and the publisher both thanked me for reading it, and they agreed with me. It was a very touching ending. Third book in the Last Policeman trilogy. That made me cry. Number 11, book that made me happy. Old Man's War by John Scalzi. he's got to be one of my favorite authors now. Old Man's War. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's the premise is, well, it's a war book. Old people, once they retire, before they die, they can volunteer for this fighting force, where basically their consciousness is taken out of their bodies and put into a new genetically engineered body. It made me happy in that, oh my, I don't know if I can tell you without giving too much of it away, but it's a really good book. It's really touching. And because he's an old man, he has a lot of family stuff going on, and it's the family stuff that made me happy. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but because in order for it to make you happy, you got to read it. Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Number 12, favorite book to film adaptation. None. None. Nothing I've read this year was made into a movie. Nothing. I mean, for a while, I was reading books specifically because they were movies, and I found out that they were taken from books, so I went and read the book, and I made the decision whether or not the book was better, yada yada. Because a lot of crappy books were made into great movies. I have not read a book this year and then found out that somebody made a movie out of it to have an opinion. So, my number 12 favorite book to film adaptation is none. Number 13, favorite review I've written this year. I have to say, it's the very first video I did on this channel for Frankenstein. And that's just because for my whole life, I had been told what a great book Frankenstein was and how Frankenstein started the sci-fi genre. Frankenstein is a milestone. Frankenstein is possibly the best book ever written. Frankenstein is the inspiration for everything. Frankenstein. Forever I've been hearing all about this book. And then one day I finally decided to read it for Halloween last year. It turns out I don't like it at all. I hate Frankenstein. Frankenstein sucks. It's all tell, no show. The favorite parts about the movies that I loved of building the monster, finding the dead body parts for the monster, bringing the monster to life, they're all missing from the book. And it's very... I hated the book. It's very boring. And it's my favorite review because I got to say that on the internet and not care what anybody thought. And it was a lot of fun to make. So that's my favorite review, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It's out on my channel. I'll leave a link to it, whatever. Number 14, most beautiful book I've bought this year. That will have to be Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. The book, I ended up DNFing the book because it's just so long. And it wasn't for me. It felt like, Empire of the Vampire felt like it was a young adult book that was rewritten to be adult with cussing and swearing and sex. And, not that that's a bad thing. If I were a young adult, I would have really loved it, but I DNF'd it because it was just so long. But the cover of it is immaculate. Just immaculate. I could stare at that thing all day. Just wow. It was a really beautiful cover. And it was a lot of what drew me to the book. I know they say never judge a book by its cover, but there's been so many book covers that screamed at me, you got to read this book. The book cover is somewhere up here so you can see it. It's just a beautiful book cover. And that made me wish I had the physical book just to look at, but whatever, it's fine. Number 15, books that I need to read by the end of the year. The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. It was the book that the Hellraiser movies were based off of. I hear it's good. For some reason, it never goes on sale on Kindle. I'm going to get to this book before the year is out. And Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. It's by Douglas Adams. He is awesome, and the Holistic Detective Agency has been on my TBR list for forever, and I will absolutely get to it this year, no matter what else goes on sale. No matter what else goes on sale, I will get to it. All right, so that's it. That is my 15 questions on the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. If you stuck around this long, thank you very much. Thank you very much for sticking around this long. I will be back when I am back. Thank you very much. Bye.
The Christmas tree's on fire, Santa's holding the lighter. My parents are both liars, I got gifts but one subscriber.